$18 trillion. It's not just how much our nation is in the red, it's how much Bernie Sanders wants to spend on top of what we're already spending. John, can we really afford to double down on our debt?
Oh, wow, we must be a really rich nation that we can talk about spending $18 trillion in this way. But the reality is it's not the $18 trillion. It's what that costs down the line. Medicare began as a $3 billion program. It's expected to cost $1 trillion in just a few years. $18 trillion would multiply into something much, much worse than that, and that's why it's never going to happen.
So, Bruce, according to John, it's not just $18 trillion. It's much more than 18, because once it gets established, it'll grow.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, well, first of all, if we had the money to do this, okay, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea, because dealing with one payer, Medicare, which is one insurance company, as opposed to several, makes it easier for doctors and patients just to deal with one entity. Now, but with the reforms that the Affordable Care Act has in it, if Sanders would adopt those things, you're going to more quality measures and making people get care at the right place at the right time. It could work.
All right. Well, Steve, if it's true what Bruce is saying, it's easier dealing just with one entity. Why don't we just have the government do everything? Just have one entity for everything, for food, for cars, etc.
Yeah, Bruce, there was a thing once called the Soviet Union. It didn't work. And if you want single payer, how about procurement at the Pentagon? You like that? You like what the VA hospital has done to hundreds of thousands of our veterans? You want competition. You want free markets. You want innovation. Bernie will turn this country into the United States of Greece, give us a sick economy and a sick health system.
Bill, Bernie, by the way, complains. This figure was put together by reporters at the Wall Street Journal. They went over all of his plans and came up with this number. He complains that these figures are too high because $15 trillion is spent on his health care program, and he said after he nationalizes health care, there'll be a lot of savings that come into account.
Well, I'll actually go halfway with Bernie on his socialism. I'd like to see Medicare Advantage for all. So you'd get a
You're
voucher.
half-read, in other words.
Well, wait a minute. Finish this thought here. You'd get a voucher key to your age and health status. And then in picking a policy, you'd make the difficult choices, the difficult trade-offs. Do I want free hip replacements at age 67, or do I want heroic cancer care at age 89? And maybe I can't afford both. That would be freedom, but it wouldn't be quite as socialist.
Mike, it all seems so clever by half, all of these suggestions. Forgive me, Uncle Bill, but I mean, I think that sounds kind of too clever by half. We've tried all these plans. They always end up more expensive and saving us less money than before.
I think that's because, David, you, Steve, John, and all you free market guys have it wrong. Bernie Sanders and John Boehner and Nancy Pelosi are much smarter than the millions of people in the economy, and they know how this money should be spent because they have so much experience in the private sector doing nothing.
All right. There was a little bit of facetious comments in there. Rich, what do you think of Bernie's plans? Is he right, or is the Wall Street Journal right?
Problem with Bernie's plans is how dispiriting it is to people who invest capital and put all their energy on the line to start businesses when they know their taxes are going to go up and they know that the rewards for all their hard work are going to be a lot less than they would be otherwise. On single payer, I was in Canada yesterday. The driver was telling me how terrible the Canadian health system is. 3 months to see a specialist, and you can't get a second opinion on anything.
I got to tell you, my wife has a relative who's a doctor in Canada, and he said when we got married several years ago, you never, ever, ever want our system or a single payer. It's terrible.
Well, then there's another question, John Tamny, which is how you're going to pay for it. He just says, well, we just raised taxes. Isn't there a limit to how much you can squeeze the neck of the people that have the money to pay the taxes?
Oh, precisely. The talk is spending all this money. Well, only a growing economy could spend this kind of money, and what he's describing would collapse the economy such that we would never get to $18 trillion in the first place.
And Steve, the guys and gals who make these billions of dollars that Bernie wants to tax for his $1 trillion plan, they're smart people. They know how to move their money around so that the government can't get it, don't they?
They do indeed. But also, though, what he does is kill investment capital, and that's how you grow. It's like cutting down trees in an orchard and wondering where the fruit went. And these socialists don't get it. Margaret Thatcher is right. Socialism works as long as you have other people's money. We're running out of that in this country because we're not growing as we should.
So, Bruce, what about that? You know how these people know how to avoid taxes. They hire the best accountants, et cetera. Even if you could get that much money, and assuming that it does some good, isn't there a limit to how much you can tax the private sector?
Well, I think we are headed to that with the current Medicare system, which is why some of the reforms that are going in, some that were started under Bush and continued under Obama, is we're going away from a fee-for-service system and setting up quality measures for doctors and hospitals. And if Medicare adopts that, whether Sanders' plan works, they're doing it now with the Medicare Advantage, which is the private system running Medicare. So,
well, Rich, I'm just wondering how many times we have to try. And you mentioned before the definition of insanity. It's not just once we've tried something wrong. It's time and time and time and time again. Maybe this time it'll get it right?
Yeah, and the problem is that it goes against human nature, and human beings want to do things, they want to form things, they want to invest for the future. And why should you disincentivize human beings who want to do that? That's the problem with all of these utopian schemes.
It's like that old commercial, don't fool with Mother Nature, don't fool with human nature. Okay, the Cash It In gang getting ready to roll at the bottom of the hour. Eric, what do you got?
Hey, David, Trump supporters clashing with illegal immigration activists, and now the Pope is set to weigh in on this costly debate. We're on it. Plus, are you better off under President Obama? He's tweeting yes, but is alarming news heading for your paycheck saying no? See you in a few minutes.
All right, we'll be watching, Eric. Thank you very much. But up here first, outsider Carly Fiorina turning up the heat over funding Planned Parenthood in the wake of those grotesque videos. Did insiders on Capitol Hill just find a way to stop it without threatening a shutdown? Details coming up.